John 21. So, I finally got to a point. I said, Tina, you need to stop asking me this question. I said, I don't have a list of reasons why I love you. And she said, she felt that I was saying, you brother, I love, we've been married so long, and now you just stop. I said, no, I don't have reasons. I don't have a list. I said, because if I have a list, that means if the things on the list go away, then that means I stop loving you. I said, so I don't love you because you do this, that, and the other. And I'm so glad for Anita Baker, because that's become our song. I said, I love you just. Y'all can act holy if you want, but you know what song I'm talking about. I love you just because you're you. Are y'all listening to me? Now, I want to let you know that I believe that God is a fan of Anita Baker, because when he looks down at us, I don't believe he says, I love you because of how many salads you keep. I don't believe he says, I love you because of how many veggie burgers you eat, or because of how kind you are, or because of how you sing, or because of how you preach. But I believe my God says, I love you just because. Nothing that you do and nothing that you don't do will ever stop my love for you. He says my love is so high that you can't get over it. It's so deep that you can't get under it. It's so wide that you can't get around it. God's love is unconditional. You can't go through a list of reasons why he loves you outside of the one, just because you are my child. It's no matter what you do, and no matter how many things you say wrong and how many sins that you commit, God says you'll always be mine, and I will always love you. Now just make sure that you make it to the kingdom so you can experience that love forever. Amen. Amen. Come on. Hey, listen to me, folks. It's an unconditional love. It is in spite of what we are. And if that's the love that God has for you, then why can't I see the same thing in you that Jesus sees? In spite of, see, when we have agape love that God has for us, and we execute that on one another, then I can't stay mad at you for a few minutes. I can't not talk to you because we've had a falling out. I can always work with you. I can always live with you. I can always make it through anything with you because I love you in spite of you being a fool. That's unconditional. That's what God has. Because the moment you can't unconditionally love somebody else, can you imagine if God... I don't care if you don't take out the garbage. I'm still going to love you. And still going to treat you like I love you. That's why relationships aren't for everybody. But they are for everybody, because if you can't get that unconditional love here, it's not going to work up there. If that makes sense to me, you say amen. But remember, I think I've got 7 minutes left. Let me rush through this. Remember, agape, love unconnected to God, can be disaster. See, we've always thought agape was untouchable, didn't we? It's the best thing. Nothing could ever go wrong with agape. I want to mess with your minds for a little bit, all right? Agape is supposed to be this perfect love. Ask you this question. When did Eve sin? Before or after she took the fruit? Before or after? Which one? Before? Yeah, before. Let's give the reason why. I'm going to quote this from this book, I Used to Be Perfect, George Knight. I'm glad y'all said that. Here's what it says. Sin is self-centeredness. Remember we taught that? We said that sin is when you focus love not on others, but you focus it where? Which is why 1 Corinthians 13 says, love seeketh not after its own. It always seeks after someone else. So before Eve actually took the fruit, Eve had chosen her will over the will of God. She had put herself on the throne of her life at the center of her universe, thus displacing God. In actuality, she had focused her love on herself rather than God, and that is the core of sin. He continues, Eve committed sin when she loved herself and her desire more than she loved God and his will. She committed sin in her heart, and that sin in her heart, listen to this, led to the taking and the eating of the fruit. Sin in the heart leads to sins in terms of action. Something happens in the heart first. First, there is sin in the heart. That sin in the heart then gives birth to sinful actions. Hence the reason Jesus on the Sermon on the Mount says you gotta not just watch out of staying out of bed with somebody, but you gotta watch but for lusting after somebody. Because if you lust after them long enough, you're gonna eventually get in there. Every every sin that we commit, sins plural, has first been committed here. Because you had to think about it. You had to let it fester inside of you. And then eventually it couldn't stay inside of you. And so boom, it pops out in action. That makes sense when you say amen. Amen. But now listen to this. This thing messed me up. Sin, he says, is agape love. Y'all see that? Sin is agape love. I want to read what he says though. Sin is love, unconditional love, focused on the wrong object. And you see, some of us have unconditional love ourselves. Some of us agape ourselves more than we agape God. And when you love yourself more than you love God, that is what sin is. Because remember, we define sin as fulfilling a legitimate need in an illegitimate way. Hence the reason some folk have premarital sex. Why? Can't wait on God. Gotta hurry up and get it for myself. I love myself. God take care of me. And there were some of us who unconditionally love ourselves and we don't love God that same way. And when you unconditionally love yourself and it's not rooted and grounded in Jesus, you will do any and everything to fulfill your own selfish, sinful desires. That's why you got drug addicts, alcoholics, sex addicts, because they're trying to fulfill something in themselves. That's what we have. Agape love focused on the wrong object being us. Sin is to love the object more than the creator of the object. It makes no difference whether that object is an external thing, another person, or one's own self. To love anything or anyone more than God is sin. Amen. Sin is love aimed at the wrong target, accompanied by a way of life lived in the direction of that aim. When agape love is not controlled by Christ, it can be disaster. That makes sense to me, you saying that. Amen. More practical application, there's some of us who take that unconditional love so far. Well, he hits me, but it's supposed to be in spite of. You seeing this? Now the devil can mess with all of these aspects. Well, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up as we deal with phileo. I don't want to go to the screen, not going to go to the screen. I want to define phileo to you in this way. This is the best way when you look at the Greek. You can start playing for me softly, please. And then as we get ready to wrap this thing up, I want to define phileo in this way, because we got to come to this conclusion. Jesus drops down to phileo. We've learned what agape is. It's got to be controlled by Christ. Learn what eros is. It's got to be controlled by Christ. But why doesn't God continue to lift the standard up if agape is the highest? It needs to be fueled by God. But when one looks at phileo, the best way to describe phileo would be this way. Women are more emotional creatures. Isn't that true? Amen. Blessing and a curse. Come on, say amen. Amen. The blessing is, and I want you to think about this for a moment. If their child is getting ready to be attacked by Kimbo Slice, some of y'all know who that is. Just a big, bad wrestler that I would have to think twice of. But if they were messing with their child, no matter how small or out of shape that woman is, without even thinking about it, guess what she's going to do? Boom, to protect your child. Is it mothers? Child's about to get hit by a car. You jump in front of it. You don't think about it. It just comes out. Because it's just a natural, it's a part of you. It doesn't make you don't sit there and say, well, I should do this. And if I do this, this will be the conclusion. It's just something that you do. It just comes out.